Hey there, everybody. Mr. Campbell here, and wanted to enliven your COVID-19 quarantine with with another humorous story from my younger days. This was another favorite story that I used to tell my students in my youth group, and this is the story of the sour chocolate milk. So this would have been back around 1997-ish. I'd only had my license for a little while. I was around 16 years old. And when I wanted to drive, I had to borrow my parents' car. It was an old 1987 Dodge Reliant, a brown Dodge Reliant. And this is important for the story. So I asked my parents if I could borrow the car one evening to go hang out with my friend Brian. And they said, certainly. So I took the car out, and it was a spring evening, I think. It was fairly warm. It was just after dark. It's probably around 9 o'clock p.m. And I was out with my buddy Brian, and we were driving around, not doing anything really. And I stopped at a party store, Angelo's Party Store, which was the party store not too far from my house. It was kind of out in the country, like a country party store. For those of you who aren't from Michigan, a party store is basically like a generic, like a liquor store, a place that sells alcohol, pizza, candy, drinks, whatever. We call it a party store in the Midwest. Anyhow, so we went in and got some beverages, and my friend Brian got a chocolate milk, and the store was about to close, so we were like the last customers. The guy was about to lock up, so we got out of the store and got back in the car, and I was starting to drive away out of the parking lot, and Brian took a drink of the chocolate milk, and it was sour, like the chocolate milk was expired, and he took a big drink of it, and it was just so foul. He was like, "Oh, sour milk is expired." And he was really angry, and he impulsively took the milk jug, and he threw it out the window, and it splattered against the front door of the party store. He was just like, whoo, and it was like, just splattered everywhere. And the owner of the party store was just at that moment, he was walking at the front door to lock it up. So he was right there locking the door, and the milk was like, and I was like, Brian, what are you doing? And the owner of the party store was like, hey, you kids, you think that's funny? And I just peeled out. I was like, and I drove away. And the party store guy, he jumped in his pickup truck, and he started following us. Like, he was right there. He was on top of things. So he started trailing us. And like I said, it was just getting dark, and I could see him coming up behind us. And I was yelling at my friend. I was like, Brian, you idiot. Like, what are you thinking? Brian's like, I don't know, I didn't even think about it. It was so gross, I just threw it at the window. So I'm driving down the road in the country, and this guy's like coming up on my tail. I don't know what he's gonna do, but I'm scared. So I see this like dark cemetery on the side of the road, and I knew this cemetery very, very well. I'd spent a lot of time here. It was one of my favorite places to go have quiet time. I used to ride my bike up here when I was a kid, so I knew all the paths around the cemetery. So I was like, maybe we can lose him in the cemetery. So I drove into the cemetery, and I turned my lights off. This is very dangerous, kids. You don't drive around in the cemetery with your lights off, especially when you're fleeing an angry party store owner chasing you for throwing sour milk at his windows. But I knew the roads in the cemetery very, very well. So I was like driving through the cemetery, like hoping I could lose him, but the guy chased us into the cemetery. He put his brights on, and he chased us into the cemetery. He knew it very well also, because it was very close to his to his party store. So I'm just freaking out. I'm like, there's no way we're gonna lose this guy. So I went driving down the far end of the cemetery, just thinking, I don't know, just trying to get away. And as I came around the corner at the far end of the cemetery, I kid you not, there was another brown Dodge Reliant sitting there with its lights off. I had my lights off. This other Dodge Reliant had its lights off. I think it was some teenagers like having some kissy time or something. I don't know. I saw a couple like young people, and they were like, huh? Like when I drove by, I could see them look. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's another Dodge Reliant. So I just peeled out and took off, out of the cemetery. And meanwhile, and as I'm driving out, I see the pickup truck come behind me, and he sees the other brown Dodge Reliant, and he pulls right up to them. I don't know what happened. Those poor kids, they probably, that guy probably gave him an earful. But he thought that was us, and he stopped, and that was the last thing I saw was him pulling up to confront the other vehicle. And we drove away, and I was like, man, Brian, we lucked out. So, I mean, that was crazy. What are the chances that there'd be another vehicle with the same color and make and model, and that the guy would go for them instead? Whew! You guys who were in that Dodge Reliant back in 1997, whenever that was, I apologize for whatever that guy did to you. But man, we lucked out. So that is the sour chocolate milk story.